2:48 a.m., northern Persian Gulf, 31 nautical miles southeast of Kuwait City. 11 Iranian fast attack boats just opened fire on USS Firebolt. Not a warning shot, not a flare, not a radio challenge. Rockets. The USS Firebolt, a Cyclone-class coastal patrol ship, was running a standard maritime security escort mission in the northern Gulf when the contacts appeared on radar simultaneously from 3 separate directions. The spacing was not accidental. The timing was not coincidental. Someone had mapped the ship's blind arcs, calculated the engagement geometry, and rehearsed this approach formation. The ship had less than 40 seconds before the first rockets hit. Welcome to Navy Powerline, where we track the engagements that define American naval power. What follows is a reconstruction based on documented IRGCN fastboat tactics, U.S. Navy patrol ship defensive protocols, and operational incident assessments from 5th Fleet records and the United States Naval Institute. The IRGCN has developed, refined, and exercised fast boat swarm doctrine against American and Allied shipping in the Persian Gulf for over 2 decades. What you are about to hear reflects the real capabilities and real limitations of both sides in the world's most contested inland sea. To understand what USS Firebolt faced on the water that night, you first need to understand what the ship is and what it is not. The Cyclone-class patrol ship is not a destroyer. It is not a frigate. It does not carry vertical launch missiles or close-in weapon systems or Aegis radar. USS Firebolt displaces 331 tons, roughly the size of a large commuter ferry. It has a crew of 28 officers and enlisted sailors. Its weapons consist of 2 Mk-38 25mm chain guns, 4.50 caliber heavy machine guns, and 2 Mk-19 automatic grenade launchers. What it has is speed, up to 35 knots, and a crew selected and trained specifically for close-quarters maritime combat in contested waterways, against 11 boats firing rockets from 3 simultaneous directions. Both of those advantages would be pushed to their absolute limits. The IRGCN fast boat swarm doctrine is built on a concept called engagement saturation. The idea is straightforward and operationally sound. If you can present a target with more simultaneous threats than its gun crews can engage, you guarantee penetration. A patrol ship with 2 primary gun positions can effectively engage 2 targets at once, perhaps 3 if the crew is exceptional. Against 11 boats, arriving from multiple vectors with coordinated timing, the math becomes devastating. Naval War College simulations model Cyclone-class survivability against an 11-boat swarm at approximately 38% over a sustained 4-minute engagement without external fire support. That number assumes a trained crew in good condition. It does not account for fires, casualties, or communications loss. Everything in a scenario like this comes down to external fire support. At the time of the attack, USS Firebolt was operating as part of a Maritime Security Operation Task Unit that included USS Baton, a Wasp-class amphibious assault ship, positioned approximately 22 nautical miles to the south. Baton had 2 SH-60B Seahawk helicopters on deck alert status. Both aircraft were fueled, armed with M197 3-barrel 20mm cannon pods and .50 caliber door guns, and crewed by pilots who were in the ready room. Alert status: wheels up in under 8 minutes from activation. Against the 4-minute loss window the simulation projected, 8 minutes was the difference between arriving to provide fire support and arriving to search for survivors. Everything depended on what Firebolt's crew could do in that 8-minute gap. The attack began at 2:48 and 14 seconds a.m. The Iranian fast attack boats were operating in 2 waves. The first wave, 7 Paycap-class and Thondor-class vessels, assessed from radar profile and subsequent post-engagement imagery, came in from the northwest, north, and northeast simultaneously. The second wave, 4 more boats, held at approximately 3,000 meters, watching, waiting. The first wave closed to 600 meters and opened fire with 107mm unguided rockets mounted on improvised launch rails welded to each bow. The rocket is not a precision weapon. It does not need to be. 11 boats firing salvos of 2 to 4 rockets each produces a volume of fire that is difficult to defend against through evasion alone. The rounds that miss have a psychological effect. The rounds that hit have a physical one. 3 rockets hit USS Firebolt in the first 4 seconds of the engagement. The first 2 impacted the port quarter railing and superstructure. The explosions were rapid and consecutive, generating a pressure wave that knocked two sailors off their feet in the aft gun position. Both sailors were not seriously injured, but they lost approximately 15 seconds of effective fighting time as they reoriented. The port Mk-38 gun went momentarily unmanned during those 15 seconds. The third rocket struck the forward equipment locker. The explosion started a small fire that would need damage control attention that crew members could not simultaneously provide while also operating weapon systems. On the bridge, Commanding Officer Lieutenant Commander Alicia Torres had seen the contacts on radar approximately 30 seconds before the first impact. She had gone to general quarters. She had not yet authorized weapons free. This is the moment that every patrol ship captain in the Gulf knows and dreads. Under U.S. rules of engagement in the Northern Gulf, Lieutenant Commander Torres required a declared hostile act before authorizing fire on Iranian vessels. Not hostile intent, not an aggressive approach, a declared hostile act. The legal line exists for important reasons. It also creates a 30-second window in which a crew must absorb incoming fire before they can officially return it. The first rockets provided the declared hostile act. Weapons free, all stations, 2 hours 48 minutes 44 seconds. The Mk-38 chain guns opened up within 3 seconds of the order. Each Mk-38 fires 200 rounds per minute of 25mm high explosive or armor-piercing ammunition. Effective range against a fast-moving boat target at night. Approximately 2,000 meters under good conditions. Against 11 boats maneuvering at 40 knots in multiple directions in darkness, the challenge is not the weapon. The challenge is the targeting. Fast boats move at the same speed as the bullet's flight time allows them to shift. A gunner who locks a boat at 800 meters and fires has perhaps 2 seconds before the target has changed bearing enough to take the rounds behind it. Against a single boat, an experienced crew handles this routinely. Against 11 boats with rockets incoming from 3 directions, it becomes an exercise in triage. Which boat is the most dangerous? Which one is closest to a kill solution? Which one, if you stop engaging it to shift fire, will be close enough to guarantee a direct hit in the next 15 seconds? These questions do not have clean answers at 2:48 a.m. with rockets going off on your deck. The first boat to be engaged by USS Firebolt's starboard Mk-38 took fire on its second approach run, at approximately 400 meters. The gun crew put rounds through the hull and engine compartment. The boat lost propulsion, turned broadside to the swells, and began taking on water. It was out of the fight. The second boat, coming from the northwest quadrant, closed to approximately 200 meters on the port side before the .50 caliber crew engaged it. At 200 meters with a .50 caliber, the boat's crew, fuel, and hull are all simultaneously at risk. The boat exploded. 2 down, 9 to go. The rockets kept coming. The 4 boats holding at range had begun communicating with each other. Post-engagement signals intelligence analysis determined that radio exchanges between the holding boats and the attacking wave resumed at approximately 2:49:30, 1 minute and 16 seconds into the engagement. The content was not fully deciphered, but the pattern suggested the second wave was waiting for a specific signal. The crew of USS Firebolt did not know this at the time. They were managing 3 fires, 2 gun positions, and a communications console that had taken indirect blast damage from a near-miss rocket impact at 2:49:55. The communications console on the bridge burned. Firebolt went calm black at 2:50:11. No radio link to the task unit. No voice contact with USS Bataan. No ability to call for the helicopters. For 63 seconds, USS Firebolt fought alone and in silence. The task unit coordinator aboard USS Bataan had been watching Firebolt's tactical picture through the shared radar data feed. When the ship's radio went silent, the duty officer did not wait for a follow-up call that was never going to come. He activated the helicopter crews at 2:51:06 and simultaneously transmitted a flash message to 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Flash messages travel at the speed of light. Helicopter crews do not. The SH-60 pilots were running to their aircraft. Back aboard USS Firebolt, Lieutenant Commander Torres had left the bridge and moved to the Combat Information Center, where internal ship communications were still functioning. She passed con to her XO, Lieutenant James Park, and began managing the tactical picture from below. She could see the radar contacts. She could hear the guns. She could not reach anyone outside the ship. She made her decision without authorization or assistance from higher command. She chose to stand and fight. The gun crews were holding the swarm, damaged and degraded, but holding. The 4 holding boats had still not committed to a second wave attack. If they had, the math would have changed immediately. But they had not. They were still waiting for their signal, and Torres did not know what that signal was tied to. She had a choice she had never been trained to make in exactly these circumstances. Option A: maintain current engagement tempo, keep the boats suppressed, trust that the helicopters were coming even though she had no confirmation. Option B: reduce rate of fire, conserve the Mk-38 ammunition, and accept that some boats would close range while she rationed rounds. Option C: accelerate the ship to maximum speed, 35 knots, and attempt to break through the southwest quadrant toward USS Bataan. Option C was tempting. It had a logic to it. Run toward friendly forces, get distance from the threat. But she thought it through in full. 35 knots southeast, 22 nautical miles to Bataan, 38 minutes at maximum speed, and the Thondor-class fast boats behind her could sustain 40 knots. They would be behind her for the entire run, firing rockets into her engineering spaces, into her fuel bunkage, into the most vulnerable sections of the ship. Option C was not escape. It was a different way to die. She chose option A. Hold position. Trust the helicopters. She used the backup emergency radio in the damage control locker, a handheld VHF unit that had survived the bridge fire, to broadcast a fragmentary contact report on the guard frequency at 25144. She did not know if anyone received it. The message was incomplete, but it carried her position and the words, "under attack." It was enough. At 2:54:18, the first SH-60 Seahawk, call sign Wolfpack 7, arrived overhead USS Firebolt. What the crew saw when they arrived was a burning patrol ship in a closing ring of fast attack boats. 4 boats still maneuvering in active attack patterns, 2 boats circling the perimeter. The 4 second-wave boats had moved closer during the previous 90 seconds, within 2,000 meters now. Watching. Lieutenant Commander Terry Walsh, Wolfpack 7's pilot, declared hostile contacts and engaged immediately. The M19 720mm cannon pod fires 750 rounds per minute. From a helicopter at 200 feet, the crew commands a tactical view that the deck-level gun crews cannot achieve. The boats that had been maneuvering inside the blind arcs of Firebolt's gun mounts, the spaces between the ship's effective engagement sectors, were suddenly visible. Exposed. Vulnerable. The first boat Wolfpack 7 engaged was in the process of completing a turn that would have brought it to within 150 meters of Firebolt's bow. The 20mm cannon fire struck it amidships, and the boat stopped. The second boat attempted to run. It powered away on a southeast bearing and was caught after approximately 8 seconds of tracking fire. It exploded. The 4 second-wave boats received the signal they had been waiting for. They turned and ran north. Wolfpack 8 arrived 90 seconds after Wolfpack 7 and immediately took up pursuit of the retreating contacts. The chase ran for 4 nautical miles before the boats crossed into Iranian coastal waters. ROE terminated the engagement at that point. The boats reached their base. The attack was broken. At 2:56:03, Lieutenant Commander Torres ordered weapons hold aboard USS Firebolt. She had been fighting for 8 minutes and 7 seconds. 28 sailors were alive. Damage control teams had been simultaneously fighting the onboard fires throughout the engagement. The forward equipment locker fire was fully controlled by 0258. The bridge fire had been suppressed, but the console could not be restored. 2 sailors had suffered shrapnel wounds serious enough to require immediate medical evacuation by helicopter from USS Bataan. Both conscious, both stable. Torres herself had caught glass fragments from the bridge window in the left side of her face and neck during the second rocket salvo. A corpsman closed the laceration with 6 stitches on the bridge wing while she reviewed her preliminary battle report. She did not go below until USS Bataan was in visual range. In the weeks following, 5th Fleet Intelligence assembled a complete picture of the operation. Signals intelligence from the 20 minutes before the engagement traced the 11-boat force to an IRGCN fast boat base on the Iranian coastline where they had assembled approximately 90 minutes before the attack. Communications intercepts recorded coordination between the boats, and a command authority assessed as IRGCN, Navy Operational Headquarters in Bandar Abbas. The timing was deliberate. The approach formation was planned. The second wave holding position had been pre-designated. The boats had rehearsed this exact configuration: the 4 holding boats, the 7 attack boats, the 3-quadrant simultaneous approach, in exercises that satellite imagery had documented 3 weeks earlier. The operation had a code name. Intercepts found references to it. In translation, Exercise Judgment Day. It was not a drill when it happened. The 4 boats that had turned and run from Wolfpack 8's arrival had been carrying man-portable anti-ship missiles. Their role was not rocket suppression. Their role was terminal kill, to fire missiles at a patrol ship whose topside crew had already been suppressed and degraded by the first wave's rockets. The helicopter had disrupted the second wave before it could execute. If Wolfpack 7 had arrived 4 minutes later, the math changes completely. 4 Iranian boats were destroyed in the engagement. 2 others were severely damaged and were observed limping back to port under reduced power. Iranian state media announced the following morning that IRGCN forces had conducted defensive operations against what they described as an American vessel conducting provocative maneuvers in restricted waters. No mention of rockets, no mention of casualties, no mention of boats that did not return. The families of the dead Iranian sailors were notified by their government 6 days after the engagement. The notifications were private. There were no state funerals. USS Firebolt was towed to the naval facility at Bahrain under escort. The damage assessment revealed that the ship had taken direct hits from 9 rockets across the engagement. The forward section required structural rebuild. The bridge was stripped, redesigned, and refitted with redundant communications equipment, specifically an independent emergency radio system that would have prevented the 63-second calm black period that had isolated the crew during the most critical phase of the fight. Repairs took 22 days. Lieutenant Commander Torres received the Navy Commendation Medal with Combat V device. In every subsequent interview, and there were many, she credited the survival of her crew to one thing: the helicopter crews of Wolfpack 7 and Wolfpack 8 getting airborne in 7 minutes and 43 seconds. 7 minutes, 43 seconds. That is the number. One detail from the classified annex of the after-action was not made public. The 4 second-wave boats that turned and ran, carrying their missiles, untouched, returned to their base intact. All 4 boats were operational within 24 hours. Their missiles were still aboard. They were available for the next time. The IRGCN has between 1,500 and 2,000 fast attack craft. The northern Persian Gulf is crowded and contested, and never entirely quiet. The United States has a finite number of patrol ships and a finite number of helicopter crews at any given alert status. 8 minutes and 7 seconds. That is how long 28 sailors held 11 fast attack boats without outside help. 7 minutes and 43 seconds. That is how long it took the help to arrive. The gap between those two numbers is 15 seconds. 15 seconds. That is the entire margin between the engagement that happened and the one that nearly did. There is something that gets lost in the tactical accounting of an engagement like this. The focus goes to the weapons, the rockets, the chain guns, the helicopter cannon pods. It goes to the decisions: when to fire, when to hold, whether to run or fight. Those things are real. They matter. But the thing that saved USS Firebolt was not a decision or a weapon. It was training. It was the 8 years of accumulated professional experience in every sailor on that crew. It was the thousands of hours that the SH-60 crews had spent flying maritime gunnery approaches at night over open water. It was the watch officer on USS Baton who had drilled for this scenario enough times that when the radio went silent, his hand was already moving to the alert activation switch before his mind had finished processing the implications. Military professionals do not rise to the occasion. They fall back on their training. The occasion is too chaotic, too fast, too violent to rise to. You execute what you have practiced until execution becomes reflex. The crew of USS Firebolt had practiced this. They executed it under conditions that would have broken a less prepared crew. They held for 8 minutes. That is the answer to the question of whether what happened in the northern Persian Gulf that night at 2:48 a.m. was luck or skill. It was neither entirely, but it was much more skill than luck. The northern Gulf will see another swarm engagement. The IRGCN has not stopped building fast boats. They have not stopped drilling the formations. They have not stopped studying what happened to the 4 boats that were destroyed and the 2 that were damaged. They are adapting. They are looking for the margins. The U.S. Navy is adapting too. The communication redundancy upgrade on USS Firebolt was rolled out fleet-wide within 6 months. Alert helicopter protocols in the Northern Gulf were revised. The trigger threshold for activating deck alert crews when patrol ships log fast boat contacts below a certain distance was lowered. The 15-second margin gets a little wider every time someone learns from a close call instead of just surviving it. Stay vigilant, stay informed. See you in the next one.